Hey guys, Tyler Ansman here with Tyler Ansman Performance. So today what we're going to talk about is how velocity development is pitching development. I think one of the things that can be a little bit confusing for athletes, parents, coaches, is that velocity can sometimes seem like a nice to have or a vanity project, right? And not necessarily something that's relevant to actually competing, getting hitters out, and all of these things. And today we're going to talk about why that's not the case, right? Why it is an important piece of pitching. We know kind of from statistics per Baseball Savant that higher velocity does a better job of getting hitters out than lower velocity, right? So we see guys at the major league level in the 89 to 90 mile per hour fastball range, right? They have about a 290 batting average against them, and we see about a 15% whiff rate. When that velocity goes to 95 to 96, we see that batting average drop to 241, and we see that whiff rate go to about 24%. When that velocity goes to 101 to 102, we see that batting average drop all the way to 143, and we see the whiff rate go all the way up to 37%. So you can see how these things scale pretty linearly. And on the side of kind of sliders as well, as an example of an off-speed pitch, we see kind of a similar thing there. So what we're kind of seeing from this is that throwing harder immediately makes you a better pitcher if we hold all other things equal. All right. I think one of the other things that we also get pushback about sometimes are injury concerns, right? We do know that injury risk does tend to be correlated with higher velocity, right? So that is an issue and a risk factor. However, what we see is across sports, right, as output levels go up, right, injury risks also increase, right? Because we're getting more demands on connective tissue, those kinds of things. And so one of the things that we see kind of on the baseball side is that we can reduce these kind of torques and stresses at the UCL and anterior shoulder and other places that are like kind of common risk areas for injury by being more mechanically efficient, right? So yeah, as you throw harder, those torques are going to increase, right? So the demands on your body are going to increase. However, if it's somebody who throws 90 miles an hour and is not very mechanically efficient, right? And we can talk about what that means a little bit further, versus somebody who throws 95 and maybe is more mechanically efficient, we could hypothetically see that 95 mile per hour thrower with lower torques than the 90 mile per hour thrower if the 95 mile per hour guy is more efficient, right? We're still going to see high torques relative to somebody who throws 40, but once we get into these kind of higher velocity ranges, if you're more efficient, it likely means we're going to see slightly lower torques, right? And that's kind of another piece of the velocity development side, is that we're not only just getting it from doing pull downs all the time, which I think is something that coaches think pretty frequently, right? We're not just banging our heads against the wall, throwing as hard as we can every time guys are in here. We're making mechanical changes. So yes, high intensity throwing is a piece of this. We need that stimulus. I've written a whole article kind of about how we adapt to high velocity throwing and why it's an important piece. But what we also need is generally to make these movement pattern changes in order to be able to kind of increase our velocity outside of just, you know, kind of the single output stuff that we'll do on our kind of higher intensity days. And I think kind of the final piece that we tend to get pushback about is, well, these high velocity guys, right, all their command sucks. And that's not necessarily true, right? Increasing velocity doesn't mean command gets worse. In fact, what we see with our in-house guys when we track these things is that generally command gets better by somewhere between 10 and 15% if we're taking strike percentages on a command-specific day, all right? And I would guess that other places are kind of seeing similar things to this. Now, the risk factor becomes, in some cases, some places may take this to the extreme where it is all high intensity throwing and at a general level. So it may just be pull downs instead of ever kind of transitioning that to the mound. And it may be a velocity development phase too close to the season where we're not doing specific command work, specific pitch design work, getting hitters out, throwing live to hitters. And all of those things would likely impact command in a negative way just because guys haven't done it, right? So if we structure our programming correctly, this new kind of engine that we're building should make the whole car drive better, right? But if we do this just in isolation and we never make the driver any better, we've got problems there, all right? So the handling also needs to come along with this. So kind of overall, right, kind of the main piece to this is that when we get into the offseason, we're like, okay, evaluating somebody's big rocks. If a high school or college guy is coming to us and they throw 85, right? And maybe they had some success in high school, all those things. We're not just gonna be like, okay, well, let's give him a better curveball. That may be an additional thing that we do. But what is our kind of fastest way to make this guy immediately better? If he throws 90 instead of 85, he's gotten considerably better, and he's kind of changed the trajectory of his career in terms of the opportunity he's gonna get, right? And then ideally, what he's gonna get as he goes these places, more eyes on him, better coaching, better resources, all of these things as he goes along, all right? So velocity development is pitching development. We just need to be able to kind of structure this correctly and probably educate people better in terms of how we get to that point. Thanks for watching, guys. Check out the next part.